I've been using technology in the classroom for about 17 years, and it seems like an increasing rate over the past 15, and now it's just pretty heavy. OIT has helped me quite a bit with technology from my very first year at UT. First of all, I went to a lot of the OIT open doors. And being in those conversations, you hear what people do, the way they think about using technology in the classrooms, and the way they problem solve, and so on and so forth. And so if nothing else, just being in the mix, quote unquote, of knowing people who are like-minded, or at least also have an interest in technology-enhanced teaching, is in and of itself a great service. Now, I was fortunate enough to receive a Project Right grant my first year here that enabled me to buy equipment so that I could do the telecollaboration between UT students and French students in France. So that was very helpful, and there was also some interest in the way things were working. So I had some OIT people who came to see how this was working and to help with setting up the system and everything, so that was good. More recently, I was also fortunate enough to receive a Faculty First grant for the development of hybrid courses for the French language program. So it's a bit further from what I do day to day in the classroom. However, it really helped me. So OIT contributed money, they contributed expertise. They provided guidance into, you should prefer maybe this design over that design, or these are the pros and cons of this layout versus that layout, and so on and so forth. And they also contributed labor. I mean, either themselves or their student or work students, or in developing materials and things like this. So I'd say overall, I've run a pretty wide gamut of services provided by OIT, and fortunately so, or successfully so. The reason why the new LRC has really enabled me to even look at my practices in a new light is because I feel like in a space like this that is designed from the get-go for language instruction, and in particular for what we call CALL, or which is maybe not an apt acronym, or technology-enhanced language teaching, is that I can combine here teaching per se, research, and then my duties as a language program director for the French program. We have a whole plethora of toys here that really invite you to examine what you can do in the classroom differently from what you were doing before, and for what purpose is it going to be effective. So as we were designing this space and talking about it, we're like, okay, well, especially with the hybrid courses looming on the horizon, it's like, okay, how could we design this that it will maximize the effectiveness of what students can do? As far as teaching, I use everything. If you look at the TEL classroom over there that has maybe the most versatile space, I use everything from the whiteboard to the little whiteboards on wheels so that students can collaborate when they do group work. They have mobile furniture, mobile chairs, mobile computers, and so they can, wheel around. And so I use the physical mobility of the space to enhance teaching, but also they have computers at their disposal. And so the other day, they were debating when women got the right to vote in the US, and check it out. We have 20 computers in the classroom. Just check it out. And so like, are you serious? So they did. And now they understand that this is part of the learning environment. So when it's questions about fact, they don't ask me. They don't wait for me to give them the answer. They actually go and they're constantly on Google. They're constantly on everything, just trying to find answers to just fact checks, because the class is not about facts. It's about problem solving. It's about analysis, and so on and so forth. And also, of course, I also use the computers for, they're all equipped with webcams and headsets, and so we still do the telecollaboration with the class in France, and so we're using, this year we're using Skype, which is pretty easy. And a whole slew of collaborative tools like blogs and Google Docs and things like this. So And all this is available in the classroom in real time, all the time. In addition to this, now on the research side of things, I film every single one of my classes. So there's a lecture capture system going on, and it allows me to do two things. One, it allows me to do self-evaluation. I can go back to this, look at it, see, okay, what did I do well, what did I not do well? How could I use the space better? How could I use the technology better? And it also allows me to see what kind of interactions are going on in the classroom. So in terms of my own scholarly work, I get excerpts of what students are actually saying, the way they're envisioning or approaching the issues, and so on and so forth. And because I do research on telecollaborative settings, I also have a sense of what is going on in the classroom as people are talking to each other. Because as you know, when we're doing a webcam session, the interactions is framed by the computer. So what I see is a little snippet of what of my partner from here to there, and about this wide, and that's what they see of me. But they don't see the rest of the environment. I can account for this with this lecture capture, and so when I talk about the kinds of interactions and dynamics that are going on in telecollaborative settings, I actually have access to that information, and so I'd say that's the. To me, that's the greatest advantage and major upside of this facility is that it brings together research, teaching, and service for me, and that has been really invaluable to be able to teach in such a space. Advice for faculty with who are contemplating using technology in the classroom. I'd say before going into the technicalities, be aware of the time commitment. It will never go as fast as you think it will. And it's not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. Sometimes I think that by slowing down and having to confront some of the difficulties and obstacles and just reconceptualization work that has to go on with implementing new kinds of pedagogical practices and new kinds of technological tools, it actually forces you to question what it is that you really want to do. So that's one thing. It will take time, at least initially. The time commitment will be somewhat large. It doesn't have to be, but it probably will be. Two, do not lose sight of your objectives. If you're thinking of a new tool, you better have new ideas in mind in terms of what you want to do in the classroom as a teacher, what the role of your students are going to be, and what you're going to be able to do differently and hopefully better after than you were able to do before. So to stay with the transparency example, if all of a sudden you decide that you want to deploy your content in a way that will enable students to muse through it in a nonlinear fashion, then yeah, use Prezi. And then your students will be able to navigate back and forth between the different contents. They will be able to make their connections between the different parts of your content and appropriate that content to themselves in a way that makes sense to them. And so in that sense, yeah, maybe you can enhance their interaction with the content and their learning. Be mindful of this, your objective, your pedagogical practices, the kinds of outcomes that you wish your students to produce. What will you be able to do in the classroom with the technology that will add value, that will add a different kind of value, and where you and your students are going to be able to construct that value together. So in the case of the telecollaboration, my students are able to talk to people in France every week. In fact, I know for a fact that they are communicating even outside the classroom, because first thing they do is, okay, what's your Facebook page? What's your IM, login, whatever, and they chat, they text, and they've already, I already get some feedback. We're about a month into this, and they already tell me that they probably spend more time talking to their partners outside of class than they do in class. That to me is a big return on a small investment of 50 minutes or an hour every week of talking to friends as part of your classes generates 3, 4 hours of intercultural communication outside of class, and that's just something that they cannot find elsewhere. But here they have something that is part of a class that they can extend outside of the class, and where they will actually investigate, and they have a purpose for this communication to happen, and they do it, and they apparently derive great pleasure from it, because I get feedback all the time. You know, people are talking about marriage proposal. You know, not sure it's going to happen, but you know, that's how deep it can go. You know, that they get this. It's the honeymoon phase. You know, we're just new to this. You know, in 6 weeks I'll be like, okay, I don't like my partner anymore. But anyway, so that's what I would encourage people to do. Is just to pause and think before you do it at all levels.